is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse, hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. No joke today, folks, because we have one of my favorite creators in the hobby, Justin Sirois, here to talk about Sickest Witch RPG, the core rulebook, which is coming to Kickstarter at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on March 25th. Justin, how you doing today?
I'm awesome. Thank you for having me, guys.
We're stoked to have you, man. Yeah. So before we get into the Sickest Witch, you have been in the RPG game on this side of the hobby for longer than most people that I know and have met through the hobby. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do before we get into the Sickest Witch?
Sure thing. I don't want to fool anybody and have them think that I've been gaming like all my life, or tabletop gaming all my life. I've definitely been like computer gaming and console gaming with RPGs. But I started Severed Books in 2012, mainly to put out a fiction series called So Say the Waiters. I put out a couple other novels under Severed between like 2012 and 2016. And then I hope I'm not going into too much detail, but I had my first kid, and for some reason, the tabletop RPG scene, industry, everything, like it was something that I always wanted to like dive into. And that when I did, it completely transformed my life, like my creative life, my hobbies. It was amazing. Really. So, but yeah, like the catalyst was I was playing tons of video games, like thousands of hours of like Dark Souls and shit. And I knew in the back of my head when my kid was born that I just would not have time for those kind of screens. So I made a huge pivot and never looked back. Like it was an immediate fun, I guess that's the word. It was like the fun that I was looking for, like all throughout my like adulthood, that I couldn't find through poetry and fiction and those disciplines. It just really wasn't there. But it's here now. Dang it.
Yeah, in a big way. I mean, I completely relate to that. For me, I was 25, and Stu ran Dungeons and Dragons, and it was the first game I ever played, and that was it. I was done. I was in love with the medium. I was in love with the hobby, and then I haven't looked back. I mean, I'm going to be 46 probably like a week after this airs, and I know I still look like I'm 28. Thank you for noticing. But you know, it's just not a moment in my life has gone by since I was 25 where the hobby wasn't a huge part of my whole being. So I completely understand that. Now, fast forward to now for you. The Sickest Witch is a D20 rules light folk horror RPG, right?
Yep.
Talk to our listeners about the Sickest Witch, because I can tell you I've played this, and whatever he's about to tell you, it's going to live up to and exceed that expectation.
So yeah, Sickest Witch. There's a couple hooks that make it different, make it shine. So yes, it is rules light, OSR-ish RPG, D20 based with modifiers. But the hook is all the magic in the game relies on the players harvesting organs from bad guys, from enemies, and then taking those pieces, hearts, livers, hands, tongues, eyes, salting them, and then imbuing them with magic power. Because the magic that these witches are using is so vile, it's so gross, they don't want to touch it, they don't want it in their bodies, in their mouths, so they literally appropriate other pieces from other people, put the magic in there, put them in these like salted utility belts. Imagine Batman with a bunch of daggers and cool leather straps.
Pink Himalayan salt.
Yeah, you're pulling out these salted pieces, and then you're casting the magic. So for me, like, I'm struggling to say like, oh, the system is a metaphor, but in a way it is. Like, it imagines bodies as property, because we're all, I mean, when you think about capitalism, when you think about the system that we're in, our bodies are commodified, right? Like our time, our labor, we're literally, our bodies are used to create capital. So the witches in this story, they're basically peasants. They've been abused through the system, through the royalty and lords and property owners. They're literally reclaiming their own bodies and others to liberate themselves and their communities around them. That's being literal. And I think the system has subtle stuff in it, and I don't want to like completely, shove that in people's faces, but it's a subtle metaphor for the system and the mechanics behind the sick magic that they use.
Am I like having like a parallel worlds moment? Was there like a board game? Did you do a board game called Sickest Witch?
I did. I
All
did.
right.
So, yeah. So
I
like,
feel so much better now. It's like this sounds so like I feel like I know this already, but
yeah.
this is a role play game. What was what was the board game like?
So it was just a simple card game with dice, and it's exactly what I described. Like you're going through the woods, your characters are the witches, and you're literally like clobbering NPCs to gather pieces from them. And then the point scoring system, like when the witch who does the killing blow to the enemy gets to acquire the card, you flip over the card and it has a mystery piece like a heart or a hand.
Mhm.
And that's both a victory point and a spell for your next turn. But to back up even further, the witches from Sickest Witch are actually NPCs from Beneath the Inverted Church, which came out in like 2018. So it's funny to kind of like go full circle with that world, because it's funny because like Beneath is a pretty long, strange campaign, but for me the witches in the story were my favorite part, and they were a very small piece of that big book. And they've always been in the back of my mind, like, man, I need to do more with them. I really love their lore, and like I wanted to know more about them in a way, even though I made them up. So yes, and so there's a card game, but even before that, there were NPCs in a larger campaign that I created.
Do you think that this is the fullest expression of the witches?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So like in Beneath, you do get the idea that they're liberating themselves and they're using this magic that they don't fully understand. But in this system, in the sickest witch system, it's pretty overt what that theme is. And like you're getting like a full suite of like over 100 spells that they can slowly acquire. You find out where they're getting the salt from, and that's a further mystery that they need to figure out. So yeah, absolutely.
Are there stretch goals in the campaign for artisanal salts?
There is now.
I want a commission.
Oh, man. Yeah, well, that'll help me right off the trip to Iceland. I'll have to go, comb the beaches of Iceland for this special salt, and I'll just write that trip off. So
Yeah, there you go.
Listen, I will tell you from experience, knowing Justin for a while now, and knowing Severed Books and the stuff that I've purchased from Severed Books, if there's a way to craft something and get something, he's your Huckleberry. So this stretch goal of the salt may not be too far out of the realm of possibility. Yeah. So I played this at page 2. Which, speaking of which, you can use the code Vintage RPG with the capital V, capital RPG for $10 off a weekend pass for page 3. It was such a great time, and for me, I spend the day vending at these conventions, so my after hours gaming time is so precious. And we sat down and we played this RPG, and I was floored by it from the start. It's simple to play, being that it's a D20 based system, you already know how to play this game, and it's horrifying. It is horrifying, and the ideas of what you have to do to survive in this game and thrive in more so than just survive is stuff that you don't really experience in a lot of other RPGs. And if you have, some of them kind of take it too far where it becomes unfun and superfluous. here, this is the porridge that's just right. I mean, as far as, crossing dark themes and horror and having a really poignant story and world that you're playing through, I had a blast. And of course, you know me, like I try to blow stuff up all the time, but and I burned a house down, y'all, because that's how I roll. Like if you play an RPG with me, more than likely there's going to be arson. But
Hambone, that's how everybody rolls, man. Fire is the role player's friend. Like,
it is, man.
It cleanses, except when it doesn't.
I'm not the first one to discover that country, let's just say. But it's definitely an interesting experience because I think it ties together nicely with the idea of folk horror, where you're not just playing the hits with a certain kind of creatures and mythical ideas that most people will go to kind of scratch that itch of folk horror. Talk to us about how you bring that kind of energy into the game, and a lot of it really does tie into the amazing art that you've drawn for the Sickest Witch.
Thank you. It's weird because like I never thought I would create a system, and then coming back from Page, the Philly Area Gaming Expo, and PAX Unplugged, I got so much positive feedback about Sickest Witch, about the Mork Borg module that I wrote for it, about the card game. People were asking like, "Oh, it's out of print. I want copies." Blah blah blah. I came back really inspired, and I sat down and I just wrote down like what would be fun that would be tied to the lore, and what mechanics would make sense only if it made sense with the story and the lore, and not to add too much. And like I only allowed myself 3 key things to kind of like tack on to a typical OSR system that would make it special. And if I couldn't do that, if it was 5 things, that would be too much. I really constrained myself to make it easy and fun. So like I already described the imbued magic pieces that you're using to cast magic. There's 2 other small things in the system that make it special. All the magic points that you're using as a coven, they're shared. So every single time you cast magic, everyone has skin in the game. So the tension for resource sharing ramps up as you go through any adventure. You can re-up those magic points slowly during certain resting periods and stuff like that. But I felt like if every player is active in the combat and everyone is paying attention and saying like, "Oh shit, like don't cast that damn spell. Like we need those X amount of points for later." I felt like that thematically made sense for not only the witches but the system itself. And then the other kind of smallish thing that I added is cauldrons in the game. And I know I mentioned Dark Souls earlier, but they sort of act like campfires in Dark Souls, where you can do a long call, which is a long rest, or long cauldron, or a short cauldron. And during a long call, you sit around a Vespery cauldron that appears between you, and you can literally toss items into those cauldrons that you can share with other GMs and players. So we're going to manage this through like a special Discord channel where people are posting what items are available to different cauldrons. But I thought it'd be a really fun way to add something to the system that builds in sharing and social, like soft social media stuff, where you can literally link almost in a multiverse way, coven to coven or game to game to game.
Fantastic.
And that's like literally that's optional. Like I don't want that to be cumbersome or too much for a GM or players, but I think it's really fun. Like if you do go on the Discord, you will be able to be like, "Oh shit, like there's a coven in New Jersey that just dumped in, a severed head, a banana peel, and a broken Zweihander, and let's grab one of those."
Yeah. It would more likely be like a pound of gabagool, but yeah. Yeah, that's
Package of Taylor ham.
Package of Taylor ham.
Dude, I was just gonna say Taylor.
Salty enough.
There is can I do a small anecdote?
Sure,
Absolutely.
please, of course.
There's a bagel shop in Baltimore, like right up the road, and there's so many students that go to Towson University from Jersey that they forced the bagel shop to have Taylor ham.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so now we go in and get the Tehe, which is the Taylor ham, egg and cheese sandwich.
Hell yeah, a little bit of paradise in Baltimore. Look at that.
Chef's
Yeah,
kiss.
I mean, it's just the way. But seriously though, it's so salty. You may not need to cut off the tip of a finger.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just drop a slice in there.
Yeah, that bagel sandwich is the spell.
Honestly,
Like,
you don't know what's in Taylor ham either, so
Yeah, I know enough that I don't need to ask.
it's ground up real fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Oh my
it's
God,
like a slice of cheese but meat.
my chest hurts thinking about it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Need to pop a beta blocker and just go get breakfast. So one of the things that immediately drew me to your work is your art style, and it's interesting because my wife Sally is like a huge Robert Eggers fan, and there is, I'm not going to say a Robert Eggers aesthetic to the work that you do in this game. However, there is a very kind of adjacent in the atmosphere of the kind of things like that you've even seen in the movie The Witch. Talk to me a little bit about the art style and how that energy kind of comes in here, because you have done, from what I'm seeing here on the Kickstarter preview, over 70 illustrations for this game.
yeah, that's been super fun. It's weird because when I got out of art school, I was only writing for 15 years. And I barely drew. Like I kept sketchbooks here and there, and I kind of like doodle and stuff on airplanes and trips. But to be back in that space and both to have my writing life and my drawing life kind of fusing for the first time, it feels great. And I was super nervous when I was working on Veilgrave with the dudes from The Spine of Night. And I'll hold it up, I actually have it right here. And I was struggling with the art. I was like, man, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not good enough. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Can I swear on this show? I wasn't even
Oh,
sure.
of course, yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Okay. I was really, really nervous. And then I was just sitting down messing around with I got this rad like Japanese ink brush this is like my go-to. But then I remember like I got my old sketchbooks out from college and I was like, crap, like I used to do dry brush all the time. Let me try that. So coupling the Japanese ink brush with dry brush really exploded my palette, meaning that like I could get quick and dirty like tones without feeling like I'm gonna screw anything up, if that makes sense.
Completely.
The dry brush is just really forgiving, like super forgiving. So like this, I'll hand it to Morgan and Phil. Like this really like opened up a whole like avenue for me to have the confidence to draw more. And then yeah, from there, like I think I have at this point almost 100 drawings for the book for Sickest Witch. They're all inky, dark, Eggers like. I think to answer your question, like I absolutely adore his work. I think that like it's some of my favorite horror stuff. I'm not a big like slasher horror dude. Like I like the more like cerebral, strange, like Hereditary, like shit like that.
Yeah.
Midsummer. I don't know if I always said this, but like recently I've been like thinking if I can make Severed Books like A24 and have that sort of like high curatorial goal, like only
Yeah.
collaborating with people that I really admire and really taking everything up a notch and having it really just hone it down to what I love, like the strange cerebral horror shit, then I feel like I'm being successful. But yeah, I heavily influenced by Eggers, heavily.
Because it definitely is cerebral. It's definitely atmospheric. It is definitely moody. And I think above all else, there's a beautiful consistency to it throughout. I mean, I've seen your work for years. Like, and one thing I will give you as the highest compliment and the highest praise is that there is such a beautiful consistency through it all, where it is so unmistakably you, and it definitely feels, just at its core, even the stuff that doesn't look dark, it feels dark.
Thank you. That means a lot because it took me like 20 plus years to get to this point of being able to kind of fuse all of my semi talents. Like I feel like I'm not great at drawing or I'm not great at writing or I'm not great at design, but if I can throw all those talents together and make something different, then I feel like I'm I'm doing good. So thank you.
So, there's a few other really interesting things I think about this campaign. And one of the things I'd love to hear you talk about a little bit is right out the jump, it has an open third party license, which is something you don't normally see from a lot of RPG campaigns. It's very much kind of closed into like, this is our book, this is what we do. And then eventually it opens up that license. What brought you to bringing it out of the gate with an open third party license?
Feel like that mechanic that I described with the cauldrons lends itself to collaboration in a way that most systems might not. And then I don't know, I think the lore is interesting enough, like getting all that feedback from people, and they're so curious about like what the witches were and what are they going to do next. I felt like there was a need or a desire for people to collaborate on the level that you're talking about. So, and it's always it's exciting for me. Like I feel like the systems that I really enjoy have that third party open license, and the community that is built around them is really inspiring. When I did the Morkborg action figure, I think year and change ago, the Kickstarter, I went to can't remember his name, but he does like the Morkborg library or the catalog, and he catalogs all the third party projects. I was like, hey dude, like how many projects are there? Do you have a number? And he's like, well, give me a week. Let me get back to you. And he was like, yeah, like just north of 2,000.
What?
Damn.
I know. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? It's only, and that at that point, it had only been like 4 years of Morkborg. So what's that, 500 projects a year?
Yeah.
Nuts.
More than
Yeah.
one a day? Um,
And there's a listener to the show who's like, got him.
It's not me.
No, not me either.
Thankfully.
yeah,
Space.
for real. But how incredible is that? Like when you think about like, you know, I'm assuming John, like you grew up punk like I did,
I did.
and like doing it yourself, having that community, going to freaking Kinko's, making a silly flyer, putting them around town. It feels the same way with Morkborg and those open systems. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna be 46 in a few weeks. I was gonna mention, I think we're almost the exact same age. It gives me that same warm, fuzzy feeling when I'm like, oh shoot, 2,000 Morkborg projects. That blows my mind. Maybe
Yeah.
there'll be two Sickest Witch third-party projects. That'll blow my mind too. Like it just feels great to know that there's a supportive community around these systems, that it almost feels like a band, like
Yeah.
it's the same feels, and I love it. Like that's the part I really love, going to conventions, seeing people making these third-party things. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean that's the same feeling I get from the RPG hobby. You have some people who, I liken them to session musicians, where like they're working uptown for Daddy Hasbro, contributing to like a book here and there, but ultimately when they're home, they're making their own projects, they're making their own art, they are hustling just like everyone else, and I think that's something that I always try to remind people of when we bring people on our show to talk about their crowdfunding campaigns, is that most companies are just one or two people, and they're doing literally everything they can to put asses in seats. So, when you do support these campaigns, you are doing so much more than you think by spending your hard-earned dollars. I mean, besides the back end where you're gonna have a blast with your friends playing this, it's important that you give us the opportunity to do the things we do. So thank you in advance. So I feel like that's a good point to hit the go home on the episode. Before we go, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about some of the cool things they can get with this Kickstarter campaign for The Sickest Witch?
Yeah, so if you back in the first 72 hours, so we're launching Tuesday, March 25th at 11 a.m. EST, you'll get a free adventure zine called Blood Property, which is like there's an adventure in the core book which you should play first, but then if you want to keep going, use Blood Property to keep going. So that'll be free, and it's gonna look nice. Like I'm gonna have all the bells and whistles, sewn binding, probably gold spot foil on the cover. And then you also get a free wood small party mini. And if you're not familiar with those, they're I hate to say meeple, but they're serious meeples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really cool, is what they are.
Yeah. I mean, they're made of the meeple material,
Yeah.
but they are not meeples like
Yeah.
traditionally as you know them.
Yeah, they're full color, like minimal spot color meeple dudes that are grizzly and mean. So yeah, you'll get those 2 free things if you back in the first 72 hours. And then for tiers, we have, the PDF of the core book will also come with the player's guide. So you'll have everything you need to give to your party, like totally free, bam. The core book is going to be $39. It's going to look beautiful. I don't want to toot my own horn, but at this stage of my design career, I know where to get great looking books with all the right stuff. So hardcover, spot foil, offset printed, ribbon, sewn binding, end papers, all that stuff. So yeah, core book standard, core book limited will only be $10 more, and we're only making 333. So if you want a rad limited edition, do that. Another thing that I did with Veilgrave, and I don't know if I'm the first RPG bonehead to do this, but I did sketch covers for Veilgrave, and they've been really fun. So somewhat blank cover that I put original art on, and we're going to make 100 of those for Sickest Witch.
That's fun.
Yeah. And then other tiers, there's like a Start a Coven tier where you get physical copies of the player's guide for like $5 a piece, like much cheaper than normal. I think the standard, of course, and then the limited edition will be the most popular tiers. But I'm trying to price it affordably, $39 for a core book that's going to look pretty good. I think it's a good deal. You'll get a lot of life out of it.
You can trust me. I've bought a lot of this man's products, so there is no shortage of good looks and playability. Well, dude, it's been fantastic chatting with you. Where can people find you on social media?
If you go to severedbooks.com, we got all of our socials linked up on there. Severed Toys as well. Who knows how long that's going to be around with the tariffs and all, but that's another.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
The not fun mysteries.
Yeah.
That's the mystery nobody wants to solve.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I don't want to scare anybody. Like the Morkborg toy is absolutely going to happen. Like that's already 90% done. So severedbooks.com, check it out there. All of our stuff is for sale. There's free shipping in the US for orders over $35. Kind of nice.
Very nice. Well, this has been another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Stu, where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me at vintagerpg.com, posting about vintage RPGs. It's right there in the name, folks. I can't make it even plainer. That would be even more boring than it already is. Vintagerpg.com. Go sign up to the newsletter. Join our Discord. Join our Patreon.
There you go. And I also took a page out of Stu's playbook here. You can find me at hamandeggpublishing.com. Thanks to Joey Royale, who gave me a video on how to do it. I built my own website for Ham and Egg Publishing, which will encompass everything from 3-2-1 RPG, Crowdfund Your Fucking Life, Zombie Brain Eaters, and the other cool stuff that we got coming out. There's a way to join my Discord as well. If you want to chat me up, you're not going to really find me on social media, to no one's surprise. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. And if you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerpg. It's pretty cool. For as little as $1 a month, you get these episodes early. So if you're hearing my dulcet tones on a Friday, you are one of our patrons. We also give a behind-the-scenes look at the stuff Stu's working on. We're going to have some behind-the-scenes stuff at the things that I work on, as well as a killer Discord community that we'd love for you to be a part of. $5 tier gets you a game with me every month. I tend to run the things that we talk about on the show. So once I get Sickest Witch in hand, you can better believe I'll be running that for you at home. The $10 tier, you can get into my game and Stu's legendary and very deadly West Marches campaign, which has been going on now for a while. And if you're in the Discord, you could ask anybody. They'll tell you, make 2 characters. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor. Thanks for listening. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Schaefer Brown. Edited by R. Alex Murray. Check us out at vintagerpg.com.